The war had been over for 6 days before anyone told Marcus. He found out the way he found out most things these days. Not through a command transmission. Not through an official military channel. Not through the voice of a superior officer crackling through a helmet speaker. He found out because the shooting stopped. One moment the air above the ruins of New Sol was full of Vorath drone fire cutting through smoke and debris. The next moment it was not. Just silence where the noise had been. The kind of silence that lands on a battlefield like a physical thing. Heavy. Wrong. Marcus pressed himself against the remains of a collapsed wall and waited. He had been waiting. For 6 days. He was very good at waiting. He was 29 years old. He had been fighting for 11 of those years. He had enlisted at 18 because his city was burning and someone had to do something, and he was the kind of person who could not watch burning cities and do nothing. His commanding officer had told him on his first day that soldiers who thought like that either died very fast or became something else entirely. Marcus had become something else entirely. He had fought on 4 planets before Earth. Supply runs turned ambushes. Holding actions that were supposed to last 6 hours and lasted 6 weeks. He had watched people he loved get reduced to nothing. By weapons that should not exist being fired by things that felt nothing about firing them. He had made peace with dying so many times that the fear of it had simply worn away like paint off an old wall. What was underneath was not bravery exactly. It was something quieter. Something that had no good name. Just the decision to keep going. Until he could not anymore. His unit had been 12 people when the Vorath ground assault began. 3 weeks ago. Now, they had held the eastern industrial sector of New Sol against a force 40 times their size for 8 days using salvaged equipment, tunnel systems the Vorath scanners could not read, and a level of creative desperation that Marcus had not known he possessed until he needed it. On day 9 they were 6. On day 14, they were 3. On day 19 Marcus was alone. He had not stopped fighting. The silence stretched across the ruins and Marcus counted his remaining ammunition out of habit. 19 rounds in the current magazine. 2 full magazines in his vest. 1 thermal charge. 1 signal device that had not worked in 4 days. He was running low on water. His left knee had been damaged in a fall 3 days ago and walking on it felt like someone had filled the joint with broken glass. He had wrapped it tightly and stopped thinking about it because thinking about it did not help. He listened to the silence for a long time. Then he climbed carefully to the top of the collapsed wall and looked out across what had been one of the great cities of the world. It was unrecognizable now. The Vorath did not conquer carefully. They removed. Buildings that had stood for 100 years were rubble. Streets that had carried millions of people were empty craters. The sky above was the color of smoke and had been for 3 weeks. But the drone fire had stopped. And somewhere in the distance there was a sound Marcus had not heard in a very long time. Nothing at all. He climbed down from the wall and started walking toward the center of the city. His knee screamed at him with every step. He ignored it. He had 19 kilometers to cover and he was going to cover them. Regardless of what his knee had to say about it because something had changed and he needed to understand what. It took him most of the day. What he found at the center of the city was a Vorath command unit. Not fighting. Not advancing. Standing. A full military formation of perhaps 200 soldiers arranged in the open plaza that had once been the main square of New Sol. Their weapons were lowered. Their commander stood slightly apart from the rest. And across from them, alone, was a woman Marcus did not recognize. She was perhaps 40. She wore no rank. Insignia he could identify. She stood with her hands behind her back and her posture had the particular quality of someone who was completely comfortable being the only human in a plaza full of armed aliens. As if she had done this before. As if she had expected to be here. The Vorath commander was speaking. Marcus could not hear the words. From where he was. He moved closer, staying low, using the rubble for cover out of 11 years of habit even. Though something told him covering was not necessary anymore. He got close enough to hear. Your planet put up more resistance than any world we have encountered in 300 years of expansion, the Vorath commander was saying. His translator rendered his voice flat and precise. The council has voted to offer terms. Withdrawal in exchange for access to certain mineral deposits in your outer system. Your people keep your world. Your government keeps its authority. The war ends today. The woman listened without expression. Then she said something that made the Vorath commander go very still. No, she said. The word landed in the plaza like a stone dropped into still water. No. The Vorath commander repeated carefully, as if he was not certain he had heard correctly. No, the woman said again. We are not interested in terms. We are not interested in your offer. We are not interested in ending this war on any condition you are currently prepared to name. The Vorath soldiers shifted, hands moving toward weapons out of reflex. The woman did not move. The commander stared at her. You are in no position to refuse. Your military has been devastated. Your cities are destroyed. A third of your population is in emergency shelters. You have no fleet remaining in this system. You have no orbital defenses. You are a broken species on a burning planet and we are offering you survival. Why would you refuse survival? The woman was quiet for a moment. Because you are offering it, she said finally. And anything you offer comes with conditions you have not mentioned yet. And we have learned over the past 3 weeks exactly what your conditions look like when they are finally revealed. She took one step forward. You came here believing we would break, she said. You have been fighting us for 3 weeks and we have not broken. You destroyed our cities and we fought you from the rubble. You killed our soldiers and the ones who were left kept fighting. You cut off our communications and we found other ways to talk to each other. You did everything your military doctrine told you would end a resistance and none of it ended ours. The commander said. Nothing. She took another step. So here is our counteroffer, she said. You leave everything. Every ship. Every soldier. Every piece of equipment you brought into this system. You leave it all and you go and you tell the Galactic Council exactly what happened here. Not your version. The true version. What it costs to fight humans on human ground. What it looks like when we decide something matters enough to die for it. You tell them all of it. And in return, we said, the commander. In return, we do not follow you, she said simply. The plaza was absolutely silent. Marcus, crouched in the rubble 50 meters away, watched the Vorath commander stand completely still for a very long time. He watched the alien process something that his entire military career had not prepared him to process. He watched a being who had conquered 30 worlds try to find the correct response to a species that had just refused survival on principle. There was no correct response. Because the woman was right. 3 weeks. 40 times the ground forces. Complete orbital dominance. Every tactical advantage the Vorath possessed. And they were standing in a ruined plaza being told to leave by one human woman with no visible weapon and no visible fear. They had won every individual engagement. And they had still somehow ended up here. The Vorath commander turned to his formation. He did not speak. He simply turned and began walking in the direction of the landing zone where their evacuation ships were waiting. His soldiers followed. 200 armed Vorath soldiers walked out of the plaza in silence and did not look back. The woman watched them go. When the last of them had disappeared around a corner, she let out a breath that was not quite steady. The first unsteady thing Marcus had seen from her. As if she had been holding something very carefully for a very long time and had only just been able to put it down. He stood up from the rubble. She heard him. Turned. Looked at him for a moment, taking in the damaged knee and the exhausted eyes and the rifle he had not put down and probably would not put down for a very long time. How long have you been there? She asked. Long enough, Marcus said. She nodded. As if that was the right answer. He walked toward her. It took longer than it should have because of the knee. She waited without impatience. "Who are you?" he asked when he reached her. She almost smiled. "My name does not matter right now. What matters is that you held this sector for 3 weeks. Alone, and because of that the Vorith ground advance stalled long enough for us to get the diplomatic team in place. You were the reason this ended today instead of 6 months from now." Marcus looked at her. "I did not know anyone was coming," he said. "I know," she said. "I thought I was the last one." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Marcus would think about for a very long time afterward. "You were not the last one," she said. "You were the reason the rest of us had time to become the first ones." He thought about that standing in the ruins of a city that was going to take a generation to rebuild. He thought about 12 people becoming 6, becoming 3, becoming 1. He thought about 19 rounds in a magazine and a knee full of broken glass and a signal device that had not worked in 4 days. He thought about the silence when the drone fire stopped. "We won," he said. It was not quite a question. She looked out across the ruins. "We survived," she said. "Winning comes later. First we have to figure out what we are going to do with a Galactic Council that just watched the Vorith fail to conquer one burning planet held by one soldier for 3 weeks." Marcus followed her gaze across the ruins. "What are we going to do with them?" he asked. She finally smiled. Properly this time. "Exactly what they did not expect," she said. "We are going to ask for a seat at the table. Politely. Once. And if they say no," Marcus said, "then we remind them," she said, quietly, "what it costs to say no to humans on human ground." She turned and walked toward the edge of the plaza. After a moment Marcus followed. His knee hurt with every step. The sky was still the color of smoke. The city was still ruins in every direction. But the drone fire had stopped. And somewhere above the smoke the Vorith fleet was already beginning to move. Away from Earth. Away from the system. Carrying with them something that no military report would ever quite capture accurately. The memory of 3 weeks. The memory of what it looked like when a species decided that this was the ground they would hold and this was the line they would not cross, and nothing in the galaxy was going to move them from it. Not a fleet. Not a weapon. Not an offer of survival. Nothing. In the Galactic record that was filed 14 days later, the entry for Earth was updated for the first time in a century. The previous entry had described humanity as a pre-contact species of limited military significance and minimal strategic value. The new entry was much shorter. "Do not engage on their ground," it said. 3 weeks later the Galactic Council offered Earth a seat at the table. They accepted. Politely. As promised. The war was over. Marcus never stopped carrying the rifle. Some habits are too deep to leave behind. And some lessons, once learned the hard way, stay learned forever. The galaxy had learned its lesson. So had he. The end. Like and subscribe for more. Comment below if you were the Vorith commander. Would you have taken the deal or kept fighting?